Hello, welcome back to another video. Before I get into talking about all my A-level art, I wanted to quickly mention that I have an Etsy shop where I sell prints and stickers and lots of lovely stuff, and so that'll be linked in the description. Oh, also, throughout the video I made a mistake a few times and I said that all this work was 2 to 3 years old, but really it's 3 to 4 years old because I just completely forgot that I did a foundation degree. So yeah, not that it makes much of a difference, but just thought I'd clear that up. Oh, also I should probably clear up for people in other countries who don't know how it works here. All this work I made whilst I was in college, and in college you are 17 and 18 years old, and I'm currently 21, just for a bit of context. So yeah, just thought I'd also mention that. Hope you enjoy the video. Hello, welcome back to another video. As you can see, I've got lots of sketchbooks piled up, and the plan is, I'm sure you can tell from the title, I'm going to react to my old A-level art books, because ever since I did the video years ago showing this work for the first time, I haven't really looked in these books much. I thought it'd be a nice time to look back at these books because I'll soon be heading into my final third year of uni where I study illustration, and I just thought it'd be nice to see how far I've come. As you can see, I did graphics and I also did fine art. I also did dance, but that's unrelated. These are all the books I can find. I know there's more. There's definitely 2 more books, but I just can't find them anywhere. So at the moment, I've only got one fine art book and then all these are graphics. But I've also got a lot of paintings from fine art to show, so I think it'll like even itself out. I guess I'll start with fine art and then I'll do graphics at the end. So this is the only fine art book I could find, I think. Well, I know it's from second year and it was the first half of second year, and then I had another book after this, but who knows where that's gone. Back in the day I used to not really know if I wanted to do fine art or illustration. Well, when I first started A-levels, I remember I didn't even know that illustration was a thing. I just thought it was art and that was it. I had a lot to learn. You just had to write an obscene amount in A-levels. 80% of the time you were writing, and I just don't think it should be like that. Really, it should be about getting better and being creative, and that's much more what uni is like. I probably do about 10% the amount of writing now. It's just a crazy amount of writing. My teacher was just obsessed with writing. Like, you'd think you'd done enough and then she'd say, do another 1,000 words, and it was to the point where I was like, there's no more to write, and I was doing the most fluffiest sentence known to man, where I was like, in my opinion, I feel like blah blah blah, and this really does this, and it's just I was dragging out the sentence so much just to fill the word count. Whereas these days I like to think I do the opposite with my writing. Just get to the point and just say it. Anyway, I've not actually gotten to any drawing yet, can you believe it? It's all just research. We'll get there in a minute. Here we go, we get an actual painting. So after all that research and probably, a good week of writing at that point, I can finally do a painting. I used to do a lot of painting, a lot of portraiture. That was what I was really interested in. I thought at the time that would be kind of what I'd do. But to be honest, a whole life of just painting faces, it hit me pretty quickly that, yeah, I want to do other things. I don't just want to paint portraits my whole life. This was a copy of this artist's work here, David Cambria. God, this is a blast from the past, just looking at all this. This is a thing I did on some plastic sheet. I used to do a lot of biro, pen drawings. Can you believe it? These are sketches. That is not a sketch, Emily. That is a fully rendered, finished piece. These are not sketches. Yeah, our teacher would always be like, do some sketches of your ideas for your final painting, and then just expect us to do basically a finished thing. If you actually did a sketch, she'd be like, oh, spend a bit more time on it. So really a sketch wasn't a sketch. There was no such thing as sketching. Here are some paintings that I did. I remember at the time loving this and loving this. At uni, the teachers are constantly telling me to not write as much because I always write too much, and it's because of this. It brainwashed me into thinking I have to write 1,000-word thing on every single drawing I do. This was my first ever oil painting. Oh, actually was it? No, this was my first ever oil painting. These were all done in acrylic. Look at the eyebrow on that. That eyebrow is something else. But you know what? It's a starting point. And then I did this, which was definitely a step up, but I was still learning. This is very pixely, this picture, and I don't have the original thing, so it will have to do. But oh, my theme! I was looking at technology and how technology is distorting you as a person. Not the most original idea. I feel like in A-level fine art, you're either doing stuff about technology, the passing of time, and people getting older, or like the environment. Those were the three main topics that like everyone chose, even though you could choose anything. Everyone just seemed to end up choosing very similar things. Another painting. This was a copy of this painting. I'll skip through a bit. There's just so much fluff to get to the painting. I was just like, oh, just let me paint, but no, I have to do all this gobbledygook beforehand before I can actually do it. I remember a guy came in to teach us how to paint, and he was actually really nice, but everyone was getting really stressed because no one had painted with oils properly before, and I was just there having the time of my life painting this painting, thinking, oh wow, this is going well, and then meanwhile there's like people crying and having breakdowns next to me because their paintings aren't going the right way, and I'm just like, oh. This is the one that I was just talking about. I remember at the time just being so pleased with this, but you know what, I'm looking at it now and it's actually really messy. Like if you look at all these brushstrokes, you can tell I didn't really know how to mix colours properly, and the colours are all a bit odd, but somehow I managed to pull it together even though I knew very little about colour mixing. Kind of had to teach myself how to mix colours. We never really got taught it, so I just was figuring it out as I went. Oh, and then this was my final piece for this project. Was it? No, it wasn't. This was still a development piece. We're getting to the final piece, it's coming. There's just no need for this much writing about one painting. I wouldn't learn anything from it and I'd just be bored out of my mind, but you just had to get it done. So I guess my reflection on my fine art journey is I enjoyed painting portraits. Looking back at this now, it's not me. I do enjoy the occasional portrait painting. If you don't know, I was on Portrait Artist of the Year. You know, obviously do enjoy it, otherwise I wouldn't have been on that show. And I've done a couple commissions for people and it's been nice. But it's not my passion. I don't get excited really to paint a portrait like I used to. I used to get quite excited, but I guess the more time passed, the more I learned about illustration and started following artists on Instagram who did illustration. I was like, oh my god, there's this whole world of art which isn't just painting a realistic portrait. And it excited me. This is the biggest my paintings ever got. You just have to keep going bigger and bigger, because I started my paintings quite big in the first place for like the first like development one, painting number 1, and then to keep improving on them, it's like, oh, I'll just do it on a bigger sheet of paper, and before you know it, I've got 4 sheets of the biggest piece of paper sellotaped together. A lot of people just used to do their paintings on black because it meant you didn't have to do a background. But it's like, oh, my background's black on purpose because it relates to my theme in this way, but really it's, no, I just don't want to do a background, so I'm going to do it on black paper. I've just found this floating around in the pile of work. This was from first year. I just remember first year was so much, draw this in black and white and make it as realistic as you can. The more realistic the looks, the higher the mark, which I was just a bit like, obviously at the time I was like, yes, realism is the best thing ever. I want to make everything look as close to the original picture as possible. But I don't know, now I'm more, what's the point of drawing it realistic if the picture already exists? I managed to find a drawing that I did in first year of fine art, because I found it's part of my portfolio, well, the portfolio I used to get into uni. And yeah, this is what first year basically was. It was taking pictures of bits of wood and door handles and zips and locks and drawing them as detailed as possible. That was first year. Oh, and doing it all in black and white. How dare I use the word sketches to describe these? They are not sketches. They are very, very detailed pieces which took many, many hours. I found this big painting here. Oh, not painting, it's a drawing. I hope I'm not getting anyone down in the dumps about doing A-level art. If anyone's going into it, don't worry about it. It is genuinely fun and I improved so much throughout A-level art, and I'm not like bashing this work. I still like this work, and obviously back in the time I loved it, but my art has just changed so much that this is no longer me. This is a big sketch I did in I forgot what it's called, biro, in a black biro pen. I remember staying up very late to get this done over multiple nights. I'm not going to show you everything because there's way too much to show and this video would get too long. I'll just show you the highlight pieces. This was my one of the development pieces in my first year. I remember painting this with the tiniest brush ever. I'm going to find an example of the brush I was using. I did this whole painting, I remember, with a paintbrush very similar to this size, which looking back was an absolute time waster. Why didn't I just get a bigger brush? I don't know. I think I was just scared to use a bigger brush because I'd always been using small brushes my whole life. Back in the day, I never really thought much about composition. I just thought, paint it in the middle of the piece and that's it. I didn't know much about composition. I didn't really know how to use it. So there's always just like some weird gaps on my painting. Well, because it wasn't really a composition most of the time, it was just paint ahead in the middle of a piece of paper. That was it. Okay, I've switched to holding the camera because it's easier to show. This, I think, was my final piece for first year. It's my mum, me and my nana. It just looks a bit weird. Like, some of the things are just a bit weird. You can tell I didn't really think too much about it. Like, the way the hair just ends and then flowers looks a bit weird. And the necks we're just floating heads, there's no neck. This is too big, so it has to go on the floor. This was the final piece for my second year, the last painting I did for A-Leaf Fine Art. I remember not really liking it, and I still don't really like it. It's folding a bit weird around the mouth, so it looks a bit weird. I just remember being constantly having to do something bigger and bigger and bigger and better and bigger and better, and it was just a lot of pressure. When the first painting I did I was really happy with, and it's like, right, we've done that painting which is already quite big and already quite ambitious, well, do something even more ambitious and then do something even more ambitious, and it's just like, how much more can I add to this painting? So I thought, I'll paint it on a map, see how that changes it. Hated painting these tram rails. I hated everything about it other than the face, which looks a bit weird right now because of the angle and the folded paper, but yeah. Here we have another painting which is too big, so it's on the floor, and I'd say this is probably one of my favourite paintings that I did over the course of fine art. I remember being really proud of this ear. I'll pop up on screen actually my most recent portraits, which I painted at the start of summer. It was a commission that I did. I don't really paint portraits that much anymore. It's only really something I do, for a commission. I don't think I would do it for fun really. I do enjoy it occasionally. I'm going to move on to graphics. This was my first year graphics book, but I think I must have ripped pages out of it because it's very, very thin. Alice in Wonderland, I think this was my second book. I enjoyed some parts of graphics, which was more the illustration side, but unfortunately there was also like logo stuff and like more graphic design stuff, which I wasn't too into, but that's just, it's all kind of lumped together. As the year goes on, you get more freedom, especially in second year, you can choose whatever you want to do. But at the start, everyone's kind of doing the same thing. But this is towards the end of the year where I think I had more freedom to choose what I wanted to do, so obviously I did more illustration. Oh, I think I did these. They're very small, I don't know where the originals are, but I painted them in watercolour in the same style as this artist here. I loved a good bit of decoration. I didn't have to decorate my pages so much. I don't really think you get marked on decoration, I would just do it. I like to decorate the pages like the artist. And also if you decorated it, it would fill up the space, so you'd have to do less writing. I think I decided to make playing cards in the style of Alice in Wonderland, and this was my first ever piece of digital art. So my first ever time drawing on the Wacom tablet, and just thinking, how on earth can anyone draw on this? Like, it felt so alien to be drawing something but then looking at a screen, because I was drawing on the tablet but then looking at the computer screen, and I just couldn't get the hang of it. It took quite a long time to finally be able to coordinate myself. So I remember struggling a lot with this because I just couldn't. I was trying to draw something and it was doing something completely different. Oh, here we go. These are the final ones. I don't think I ended up using the Queen because I didn't like her. I don't have any better pictures of it other than these. I remember just using the plain old brush, the bog standard brush that comes on Photoshop. I didn't experiment with any textures. Block colouring. I think the cat was the best. I was pretty happy with the Joker as well, but I think the cat was the best one. Just quite an odd project really. I had no interest in Alice in Wonderland, and I had no interest in playing cards, so it's just a bit of an odd choice for me to choose Alice in Wonderland playing cards. Okay, we're moving on to the first half of second year is this book. Let's get into it. This is quite a fun opening page. I just did this for a bit of fun. I used to really like drawing these fishes. Fish. not fishes, it's fish, innit? My style's changed so much. I used to do black outlines around things, and now I'd never dream of doing a black outline. Oh, I was looking at anthropomorphism, animals and items, and giving them human characteristics. Oh, I really liked these at the time. They're my little watercolour animals. You know what, they're actually quite cute. I really like this anteater, he was fun. Oh, that dog's actually really cute as well. See, I was finally, because I was moving on to second year and I got a bit more freedom, I was finally doing more illustration work rather than having to, you know, do all the logo and the graphic design things, which I really didn't care about. And it was just exciting to have more freedom. One thing that was really good about doing all that logo stuff though was it helped me understand Photoshop. Graphics is what taught me Photoshop. We really didn't do any Photoshop at all really in fine art, so all the Photoshop skills I'd learned was from graphics, so it was a really good skill to have because then I could use those skills in fine art and kind of come up with cooler paintings because of it, because I could like cut up stuff and figure it all out in Photoshop. A lot of my Photoshop knowledge I owe to A-level graphics. Oh, Oliver Jeffers, what an absolute star. I still love Oliver Jeffers to this day. I'm sure you probably know who he is. He's a very well-known children's book illustrator. Yeah, this was the start of, oh, right, I was doing a children's book project. I thought this was my final piece, but it mustn't have been. Oh no, it wasn't, alright, I'm getting mixed up. So I was working on a children's book project. Obviously that's why I'm looking at Oliver Jeffers. I wanted to make my own children's book. So I was just having the time of my life doing illustration. Oh, this is a bit rough. This is probably my second ever digital piece. You can just see how pixely it is, and it's just so stiff, and the text just looks really weird, but I remember at the time thinking this was really good. You gotta start somewhere. You know what, looking back at this, I must have enjoyed graphics more because it was illustration. I found fine art easier because, I don't want this to sound bad, but I was obviously just copying pictures. There was less creativity. I was just taking a picture and painting it. End of. I mean, I would, you know, distort the pictures sometimes, but at the end of the day, that was what I was doing. But with graphics, I felt like I had to use a little bit more creativity and come up with a whole idea for this children's book. So it was a little bit more creativity, and I think just drawing stuff with a style and more kind of cartoony, I suppose, didn't come naturally to me. You know, it was more coming up out of my head rather than from a picture that already exists. I think I must have enjoyed it more because of that, but found it more challenging. Even though you look at the illustrations and you think they're quite simple, surely painting a realistic portrait is harder. But for me, kind of just coming up with the ideas and drawing something entirely from my head was so much harder than drawing from a picture. So this is a children's book I made. It was called The Train to Snoozeville. You can definitely tell my digital drawing skills have improved since the little Alice in Wonderland playing cards. Definitely improved a lot. I'm starting to use different brushes and experiment with like more textured brushes. I was making my book have little pop-out bits. I was quite proud of them. I remember I just lived in art. Obviously I did a lot of dance as well, but I remember dance finished quite early exam-wise because just of the timings with exams. So as soon as dance finished, I just lived in the art department. I wouldn't have dinner. Well, obviously I'd have dinner, but I'd eat it in the art department. All my breaks, I'd just stay and carry on working because it was just so time-consuming, especially juggling the two subjects. It was just so much. And I only did two subjects. My friend did graphics, fine art and 3D design, so she had 3 art subjects to juggle. Don't know how she managed that. Alright, so this is the children's book that I made. I remember I ran out of time, so I could only do a few of the pages. This is really pixelated. I clearly don't think I really knew how to set up a Photoshop file right, so yeah, I don't think it must have been way too small of a file, so it went all pixelated. So The Train to Snoozeville, it was called. It's just about this, I don't know, I was trying to come up with something that was nice to read before bedtime. It's just so pixely and the textures look really weird, and like this doesn't really match this. Like this brush doesn't match like the flat colour brush. But you know what, you got to start somewhere, and I was having fun. I was having a lot more fun than painting my portraits, I can tell you that. I also did these little interactive elements which I thought were fun. Check that out, little 3D bit. This is now the second half of the second year of A-level graphics. So this was like the book which was for your exam. Can't quite remember how the percentages worked, but maybe this was worth 60% of the grade and then the other book was worth 40%. I really can't remember, but this book was more important because this was for the exam. If I remember rightly, the exam paper, there was just a big list to choose from and I chose to look at, I can't remember how it was worded, but basically I had to look at paper and I had to make stuff out of paper. For my theme, I decided to look at plastic and the environment. Collaging. This is a very, very different type of collage to what I do now. This was collaging with like cutting out magazine things, and if we compare that to a modern day collage, if we compare that to something I've done now, there you go. Very different. I've come a long way. She's a really good artist. I still follow her and I still really like her, Helen Musselwhite. She makes these amazing illustrations all out of paper. Oh, here we go then. I was planning an illustration to use to show the impact of plastic, and I did this out of paper. Oh, just look how sad it is. It's just so flat and plain and there's no texture and the colours are weird and the composition is weird. I think this looks a lot better than this. I remember there were 2 layers, so it was the tree layer on top and then you could take that off to reveal the plastic underneath. I used to line everything in pen. I used to just draw in a very different way to what I draw now. I just love the fact that I used to do titles for like every single page. Like, why did I have to write thumbnails on this page? You can tell it's thumbnails. I remember I stayed up so late to get this done because there was just an obscene amount of work to do during the holidays with fine art and graphics, and I remember just working all day every day, and then it got to the final day and I was like, I've still not done this piece for graphics because I was working so hard on my painting for art. So I stayed up till, I don't know, probably like 3 o'clock to get this done, and then I had uni the next day and just being so tired, but at least I got it done. I did a complete switch around 180 on this project and decided I'm sick of doing, well, sort of 2D flat things. I just want to make something. I want to make a sculpture. I want to make a model out of paper. Oh, here's the model that I made. So this is what I made during the exam. I think it was a 15-hour exam. Although I went in with all my pieces pre-folded. My teacher let me fold all my pieces beforehand. So then when it got to the final thing, all I had to do was spray paint them and stick them on, which I say all I have to do. It was a big job. So I made this whole thing, and then I made basically the entire cover in the exam, and then the only thing which changed is I managed to get a proper picture of someone wearing it after the exam, which I just placed in. My lovely friend modelled for me. If I can find a picture, I'll pop it up. I remember there's a spelling mistake on this. If you can find it, leave it in the comments. I remember my friend came round the day before so I could practice her hair to figure out a way to cover the strip of the headband because I didn't want that showing. I hope you've enjoyed looking back at that. I don't really know what to say about it. Obviously, some of it is getting on 3 years old now, so it's, I've changed a lot and it's just interesting to see the journey, I suppose. Yeah, it's just very different to uni, and I can't believe just how structured everything is in the books. It's like, here's my page, here's a title, here's the writing, here's the art, here's a page, title, writing, art. I don't know, there's not much freedom in that, and now it's just have a sketchbook if you want, and there's not a single title in sight, not a single, well, I mean, I guess a little bit of writing, but not much. So anyone going into A-levels, I hope this hasn't scared you, and it is fun for the most part. I remember it was just a very stressful time in my life. It's just juggling 3 subjects is just a lot, especially when 2 of them are art subjects, which are very demanding and require a lot of time. I just remember being a very stressed little 17 and 18-year-old doing all of these. Uni's a lot less, well, for the most part I find it a lot less stressful because you're doing 1 subject and that's it. I only ever have 1 thing going on at the same time. We only ever working on 1 thing, which is nice. Whereas here I was juggling so many different things. It was just a lot. This is art that I made at one point in my life, which has now led up to You know, it's all just a trickle effect, and one thing leads on to the next, which leads on to the next, which leads on to the next, and then 2 years later, 3 years later, here I am drawing insects and cute little plants. For a bit of context, here's a painting which I finished a few days ago. Let's compare what I used to do and what I do now. Very, very different. I hope this has been fun to watch. If you're going into A-levels, don't worry about it. It is stressful, I'm not gonna lie, but it's fine. It will finish eventually. That's not very positive. How do I make it sound positive? A-levels are good and you improve a lot with art, and if you put effort into it, you will start to see results very quickly because you are forced to do a lot of art. And comparing this stuff to GCSE, miles better. The same can be said by comparing this stuff to my uni work. That is also miles better. The more you do art, the more you realise what you like and the little subsections of art which you're really interested in. By doing this different stuff, it made me realise my true passion, which is illustration, which is a good thing. I hope you have enjoyed watching, and it's been fun to look back at some of my old art. I'll see you soon. Goodbye.